One of the things I'm passionate about is ensuring that we honour women and men in ministry, and we equip women and men in ministry, both lay and ordained, to serve God out of their gifting and their abilities. And I'm really interested in working with church leaders, lay and ordained, to help us to do that. We're not about affirming kind of a macho image of men or an alpha male image of men and masculinity. We're about recognising and celebrating the diversity of approaches to ministering to men and ministering appropriately in that context. And we know that actually thinking about that over the long term is going to benefit us.
If you lead a church, or you're in a church, and you say we're trying to appeal to the typical guy on the street who doesn't yet know Christ, if he were to walk into your church and look at your activity sheet for the week, would he be able to view it and say, I could see myself here? Or does he look at it and say, there's nothing here for me? So we just pose these questions. We just help look a little bit deeper and say, okay, what's the sort of environment that we are creating here? So at CVM we talk about building trusted relationships, close relationships, and maybe relationships that they're not getting, in the world, where they can share stuff honestly.
It's our responsibility as guys to do something about this. The women are very good at giving us space to give it a go. But often we're the ones that have not taken responsibility and doing something about this. The fault is at our door, it's certainly not at the ladies' door. In that sense, when women lead churches, they often give space for the guys to do something about it. Whereas often when we lead churches, and forgive me because I know we've got church leaders here, but often as guys we lead churches, we don't give opportunity in that same way. And so we need to look at that and take responsibility and resource this issue.
People of other faiths, as we talked about a bit earlier, is that they're more proclamation. They're more, this is the way, this is the direction, this is the truth. And if we say, we've got our scriptures, we've got our Bible, and we're talking about the Bible, a friend of mine was going off on one on Facebook, talking about the scriptures and arguing with somebody else about the scriptures. But this other person didn't even believe in God. And so I'm thinking, well, why are you quoting scripture to somebody who doesn't believe in God? That's not going to persuade. How's that going to convince anybody? But we've got scriptures, and those of other faiths will respect our scriptures. But when we communicate, what are we communicating about our scriptures? And one of the big issues for somebody from another faith background, I think it's the biggest issue, with somebody from another faith background coming to become a follower of Jesus, not Christian, but becoming a follower of Jesus, isn't their religion. That's not what's most important to them. It's, what about my culture? Have I got to give up my culture? Have I got to give up my community? Have I got to give up my family? And of course, the answer to all of those is no. But it's how do we disciple in a way that helps people to see that they don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
If you lead a child to Christ, 3.5% of families follow. Now, I know we're talking about nuclear families here, and not all families are nuclear families, so accept that. If you lead a mother to Christ, 17% of a whole family will come to Christ. But if you lead a father to Christ, a huge 93% of the family will then follow. So if that statistic's wrong by 30%, it's still 63% of families who, when the dad becomes a believer in Jesus, the rest of the family will join in that journey. That made me think, even if I don't believe in statistics, why shouldn't I consider taking ministry to men more seriously than I do? Why shouldn't I prioritise, as a bloke leading a church, ministering to men? Because if I do, children and women and families all win. We all win.
But we run Who Let the Dads Out at our church, and in CVM language we talk about 4-level evangelism. So level 1, building relationships. Level 2, unpacking testimony. Man's story of how his life's changed. Level 3, like a course like Soul Man or Christianity Explored, Alpha. And then level 4, seeing them become committed. And like you were saying, Jay, we sort of have two groups coming out, running our church. We have our own men's ministry, which we set up in 2003. And every Friday morning, there's a whole bunch of us Christian guys that meet for breakfast at 7 o'clock. And we call that Magnet Group, because we're saying about being magnetic men coming together. And that's where we share life together. We have a bit of breakfast and then we talk what's going on. We share scripture. Sometimes we worship. Sometimes we might have an encouraging story. Sometimes it just might be a challenge of that week. And we've invited and brought in non-Christian men into that. We're now helping guys who have been addicted to alcohol, getting them into rehab, and it's just seeing us guys grow together has been brilliant. But then we want to be reaching out, don't we? We want to be sharing our faith with those that don't yet know Christ. And at CVM we say, do something you enjoy, like cycling, and then invite others into it, and allow those conversations to start. So,
we will stick with and get enthused with those areas about which we are personally interested. And you've named photography. And the kind of the blanket stereotypes around men eat pizza or men's ministry do curry nights.
Or football, not that interesting for the eyes.
I mean, I think it needs to be kind of acknowledged that a number of men are interested in football, so we don't bracket it out. But we need to minister out of our passions and our enthusiasms, and if we don't do that, we won't be able to sustain it. So absolutely go with photography and create a little group, because the depth of relationships that you will establish in those will foster the opportunity for conversation about those things that are most important to us, including our faith, in a much more real way.
When you say you're aiming at everyone, you're aiming at someone. And you talked about the TOTS group, when you're aiming at the TOTS, and and that's its own demographic, you know. And so, just as the TOTS group are for the TOTS, we wouldn't say the TOTS group, you've got to be open to the granddads, you've got to be open to the grandmas, you've got to be open to everybody else. This is your group for you as TOTS. In the same way, it's the issue of multicultural church, and and so, as you rightly say, you won't get everybody to everything, because invariably we will categorise to some extent. But I think it's a mistake to say, well, actually, the danger with men's groups is that you're just calling just the guys. Certainly, you will get some stereotypical guys there, and certainly, if you do it and aim it for everybody, you're going to get, you may get actually nothing there. And the reality is, you could argue that the church in the UK today is aiming at everyone. And yet there's clearly a bias, because in aiming at everyone, men are saying, thank you very much, that's clearly not what we can see. I think there's a big fear that, we've got to change everything. And I think also there's I think we're talking about justice, and also respecting people's boundaries of time and energy. So, for example, with the men's groups, the advice from CVM is not you do a men's group every week, but you do once a month or something, or even 3 or 4 times a year. Because we want men to be, if they're married, be part of their families and resource their families. If they've got other responsibilities to do those responsibilities, we don't want anyone to burn out. And so there has to be you've got to give space and breathing space, really.
In most churches, men are significantly underrepresented, and then the question is, what affirmative action should we take to connect with underrepresented groups in our church? What's the motivation for doing men's group, and should we continue to do so? And I think my motivation is about affirmative action and addressing areas where there is underrepresentation.